Please note that the making of this documentary is for educational purposes. No profit was made.
1014 Mel Street. Copy, overdose at Walnut. What was the cross street?
Oh, she's overdosed.
Yeah, that's what we said. We're trying to help.
Can you breathe? Can you hear me, honey? There you go, honey. Breathe.
What you are witnessing is the deadliest crisis in American history, the opioid crisis, where every day more than 130 people in the United States die after overdosing on opioids, where doctors prescribe opioids to addicts, and where victims with insurance become a gold mine.
Tessa, can you hear me?
There you go.
Hey, what's going on?
In the middle of a crisis, who do we call? Where do we go to get the answers we need? But most of all, what do we do when humanity is hurting itself? I'm Alyssa Stephens, and these are the stories of an epidemic. To understand this crisis, we need to understand what an opioid is and how this crisis began. Florida, and specifically Palm Beach County, are one of the many states and counties where the opioid epidemic is notorious. This made me wonder, do any of my peers know or understand what this crisis really is? This is something that's happening right now, right in front of us, and maybe even happening to us. So I started with my school, asking my peers if they even knew what an opioid was. What's your name again?
Marcus Atkinson.
So do you know what opioids are?
Ain't it's like medicine or something like that?
So do you know what opioids are?
No.
So do you know what opioids are?
No, I don't.
Have you ever heard of the word opioids?
I don't think so.
Have you ever been talked to about opioids? Like, does the name sound familiar?
No.
No. So do you know like the effects of opioids?
Nah.
So hey Isa, so do you know what opioids are?
No. What are they?
Have you ever heard of the word opioid?
No, I'd like to know what they are.
No. So they're drugs, and they're made from poppy seeds, and there's a really bad opioid epidemic right now with them.
Like crack?
It can lead to the usage of crack. It seems as if no one really knows what's going on. It is here, right in front of us, yet our awareness seems to be blocked. How could we not know? It's in our music, our cartoons, and even unknowingly in our own homes. Even in my own home, I found a few bottles. They weren't opioids, but they were still easy access. Figuring out how this all started can lead to many different areas. The typical story is that it started in the late 1990s. Pharmaceutical companies reassured the medical community that patients would not become addicted to prescription opioids. With this, healthcare providers began to prescribe them at greater rates. This subsequently led to widespread diversion and misuse of these medications before it became clear that these medications could be indeed highly addictive. To say that we were completely unaware is debatable, considering the scandalous pharmaceutical history of the crisis.
The Sackler family, this family, they pretty much started really promoting these strong opiates in the 80s, telling doctors to prescribe these drugs that, you know, you could go to the dentist, get a tooth pulled, and they were prescribing you these opiates.
According to Forbes, the Sackler family is one of the richest families in the U.S. In 2016, Forbes estimated their net worth to be a conservative $14 billion, dethroning wealthy family names like Malone's and the Rockefellers. So how did they become so wealthy yet so unknown? The answer is oxycodone, the controversial painkiller. The Sackler family founded Purdue Pharma, a pharmaceutical company which launched the drug in 1996. According to Business Insider, by 2001, sales of the drug made approximately 80% of Purdue Pharma's revenue. Even though in recent news the family has had to give up their business, this in no way makes up for the damage that they've done, nor does it hurt their pockets. Clearly, this epidemic has many founders and many factors feeding into it. Since South Florida has kind of been the mecca for people in drug treatment, I began to seek answers in my officials. I started with my county State Attorney Dave Aronberg.
A bit crazy.
Yeah, one of the lots.
Oh, okay. This is our boy. Finishing up a phone call. Yeah. See. Come on in.
How you doing? Oh, hello. I'm Dave Aronberg. Listen, nice to meet you. Hi.
How you doing?
My name is Dave Aronberg, and I'm the State Attorney for Palm Beach County. I have been State Attorney since 2012 and then re-elected for a second four-year term in 2016. As State Attorney, I'm the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the county, which means I'm the top prosecutor. So we prosecute all the state cases, crimes here in Palm Beach County, anything from DUI to murder. The opioid epidemic is an epidemic that is unprecedented. It is something that has been years in the making, entirely man-made. It was caused by corporate malfeasance, professional greed, political apathy, and regulatory failure. Started with drug companies making new powerful pills, opioids, which were sold as safe and non-addictive when in reality it was neither. And doctors prescribing this stuff like it was Advil, and that's led to millions of Americans becoming addicted. Today in the United States, 130 people will die from opioid overdoses. It's a true tragedy. We have had a Sober Homes Task Force since October 2017, where we have made well over 70 arrests, most of them for patient brokering or insurance fraud, and we have gone after people who are gaming the system, who are creating a cycle of relapse instead of recovery within the drug treatment industry. So you have all these people who are trying ostensibly to get people healthy, get them off these opioids, when instead they're encouraging them to stay on them so that they get more insurance money, and everyone's making money off the kickbacks and the insurance fraud until the individual with substance use disorder dies.
One thing is for sure, this is all being guided by one hand, the love of money. There are many stories of men, women, and children that are extremely affected by the opioid epidemic, like Gayle Martin and Barbara Schaefer.
My name is Gayle Martin, and I was an investigator for the Public Defender's Office for 20 years, and then I had a private practice, Martin Investigation and Mitigation. Cody began school at Washington Elementary in Riviera Beach. He was kind, he worked, and he loved to fish, and he had a lot of friends. His high school life was very good. He started the King's Academy and was involved in the sports teams there. He played football. He was a black belt in Taekwondo. I became aware that he was using drugs when things started to change. The King's Academy was sending him for a drug test, him and some other people. And that was the day he was living with my ex-husband. Dr. Faso pulled him out of the King's Academy rather than let him do a drug test. He became someone I didn't know. Gone was this amazing, kind-hearted child. Cody died July 1st of 2011. You know, this is just a perfect day for me to give you Cody and my story and about his journey with opiates, because today's his birthday. Cody would have been 26 today.
After speaking with this longtime family friend, I felt the need to reach out. So I went on to Gayle's friend, Barbara Schaefer.
My name's Barbara Schaefer, and I'm the Director of Education for the Hanley Foundation. It'll be a year in April, but I've been volunteering at the Hanley Foundation for probably 2 or 3. It's been very therapeutic, I must say. You know, a lot of people think that I'm doing so much for the community by facilitating these groups, but I'm really getting back probably just as much, if not more, by being able to speak to other families that have been in similar situations that I have. 4 years ago, I lost my daughter. She was a heroin addict, and she was clean when she passed away, which kind of is why I still have hope and want to reach out to others. But She was in full-blown addiction for a couple of years, but she ended up contracting MRSA, which is a bacterial infection that went right to her heart. She had to have open heart surgery, valve replacement, a pacemaker put in. She suffered a minor stroke, went through all of that, got out of the hospital, was doing really well and relapsed, which is very common for individuals with substance use disorder. It's a brain disease, and a lot of people haven't come to realize that yet. But she did finally go through rehab once more and got clean. But unfortunately, there was another bacterial infection that went to her heart and was throwing off clots. So she had a clot in her leg and went into the hospital to get that taken care of. And when they did a test to see what was going on, and they were going to schedule another open heart surgery, but she passed away during the test. So she was sober at the time, which I'm thankful for. But leading up to that is what made her heart so weak that it couldn't survive the test. But that's what's gotten me into all of this. Trying to help others get through what took me a year to even be able to talk about. But that's kind of my mission in life from now on, is to try to see if I can help other families going through similar things. One of my main points nowadays is to try to break the stigma that's associated with substance use disorder, how people won't talk about it. And I'm a firm believer that if we're not going to talk about it, it's never going to change. But I'd like people to know that there's no shame in it. It's not a moral failing. It's a disease. And if you know anybody with a substance use disorder, try to have them realize those points as well and get help, and seek help for yourself as well, because recovery is not only needed for the individuals with the substance use disorder, but it's needed for the families, because they're just as affected by it as everybody else.
For many, dealing with drugs and drug addiction is in their everyday lives. For example, dentistry. Dentist Estelle Beresford from West Palm Beach Family Dental chimes in on the conversation.
My name is Dr. Estelle Beresford. I'm a dentist. I've been working in the field of dentistry for 26 years. Let's start at the beginning. One of the main concerns in the epidemic is over prescription of opioids, and prescription of opioids when they're not needed, not just prescribing them, but giving too much. Unfortunately, even with dentistry, we had patients who would come in, say that they were having pain, and pretty much use a tooth problem as an excuse to get more meds as an emergency. You know, patients come in as emergencies all the time and get medications that they maybe didn't need at the time. Mostly in my professional life, it's shown up. I have seen many of the effects of this epidemic. In other words, when they're in the throes of the addiction, we don't see them. It's after they're off drugs for a while. They'll show up in the dental office and say, I've been off drugs, I've been off for a year. And it's devastating orally. They end up with losing a lot of their front teeth. They end up with gum diseases that are not treatable. Patients who tend to have addiction to opioids and pain medications, not just the opioid pain medications, are more susceptible to having pain after injury or surgery, so that they're more difficult for their pain to treat, and surprisingly will need more medication. That's why they've been self-medicating for years. The thing is not to give them long-term medication. From a dental standpoint, I believe that physicians and dentists should be very aware, of course, of this epidemic. I think it's important to have knowledge of what patients need to control their level of pain for each individual patient, rather than blanketly prescribing medications that work for most people. That's one. Two, I'm not sure that physicians are aware of the devastating effect that it has on the oral health. We're, of course, more concerned about the general person on a whole and the effect that opioids have, but it's absolutely devastating dental-wise. And I think the whole community should know the devastation these people go through. Once they get off the drugs, their health is greatly affected. It's not just, oh, I've battled the addiction. For the rest of their life, they're cleaning up their health from the addiction and the effects on their health and opioids.
Going down the conversation of opioids is like going down an gaped rabbit hole. With all of this happening, you begin to wonder, are there any solutions to what's happening? With this question in mind, I went back to the State Attorney's Office to interview investigator Ted Padich.
So what exactly do you need?
I'm just going to be here asking you questions about...
I'm investigator Ted Padich, and I'm currently employed by the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office, and I'm the lead investigator in the Sober Homes Task Force. Our task force was put together by State Attorney Dave Aronberg in response to the opioid crisis in Palm Beach County. There are multiple reasons why we saw this epidemic occur in Palm Beach County. A perfect storm of circumstances would be the best way to describe it. We were coming off the pill mill crisis, and there had been successful law enforcement efforts and public education on the pill mills.
Pill mills are pain clinics that are really just nothing more than just mills for these pills. That's what it is. It's like drug dealers wearing white coats. It's doctors who align with business people who distribute pills and nothing more. No therapy, nothing. You go in for a backache and the only course of treatment is pills. And they give you the same type of opiates until, and they encourage addiction because it makes them more money. And it's just like one-stop shopping. They used to be in Florida, they used to have them all over the place. They used to have more pain clinics in Florida than McDonald's in Florida.
And the pill mills that had flourished in South Florida had sort of been eradicated, but it left a gap in the people who were using opioids and in the pill mills, and what we developed in from there. Sober homeowners at first, and then later the treatment facilities realized they could make money on the drug testing of urine specimens, and then in a very, very short time, that exploded. A legitimate sober home should be drug testing you on 2 or 3 times a week. Normally, that drug test is roughly $5 a test. It's a litmus test. You pee in a cup, and the litmus paper on the side of the cup will tell the sober homeowner if you've been using drugs or alcohol. However, a testing of that sample to a lab can cost several thousands of dollars. So rather than a sober homeowner paying $4.95 for a cup, he or she could send that sample out to a laboratory, and the lab could bill thousands of dollars for that sample, and then the lab could kick back money received from the insurance carrier. Or the sober homeowner could receive money from the insurance carrier and kick back money to the labs. It became a pattern of kickbacks, of patient brokering.
Patient brokering is when you're paying to play. You're paying for patients, paying to put a head in a bed. You know, you want your healthcare decisions to be made on what's best for you to get you healthy, not what's going to enrich you or the providers. Patient brokering is you have some marketer come in and say, hey, you go to that provider, go to that drug treatment center, I'll kick back some money to you. And you know, the money flows back and forth, and no one gets healthy. They just end up making some money and ultimately leaving South Florida in an ambulance or a body bag. Insurance fraud is exactly what you think it is. It's when you're overcharging, when you're having too many services rendered for something, where you're cheating insurance, which is often just like patient brokering. It's just pay to play. It's putting a head in a bed. Often they're one and the same, patient brokering and insurance fraud.
A large majority of our overdoses, up to 80%, are people from out of state. They come down here for drug treatment and they end up overdosing. These drug tests for a local person down here in a sober home should maybe cost $20, $25 a week, but unscrupulous operators will bill an insurance carrier $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a week for those same tests. Who pays this ultimately? Who pays for this? And that's the person who's come down here to get sober or to stop using drugs. And in fact, they're encouraged to stay addicted. They go into what we call the Florida cycle. A sober home should be a clean, safe, drug-free environment where people that are recovering from addiction transition back into mainstream society. Too many of those sober homes became just simply flop houses, wherein sobriety was of little concern, where they didn't have to work, where they didn't have to even, make their own bed or clean their own room. Whether or not this problem stays the same or gets worse is going to be up to the people of this county, the decision of the people that live in this community. It's up to them. Certainly, we've done a lot of good, but there's more good to do. About 5 minutes before I came into this room with you, I talked to a young man who's been down here for 4 years. 4 years. And in the same system. He's been in 35 different facilities in those 4 years. That young man needs to go home. South Florida's not going to help him.
Seeing the effects of this epidemic has hit me hard. It's hit my family hard. And I don't ever want my friends or other loved ones to one day say, my drug dealer was my doctor, and I didn't even know. With this seeming to be a never-ending spiral, where do we begin to heal? Once again, the answer to these questions are right in front of us: chiropractic medicine. I went to my own chiropractor to ask what role does chiropractic medicine have in fighting this epidemic. Dr. Beth Kozak.
My name is Dr. Beth Kozak, and I am a chiropractor.
How long have you been a chiropractor?
20 years.
So you've seen a lot.
I've seen a lot.
It should be the number one first choice for patients who are in pain. So a patient could have, let's say, low back pain. One of the most common causes of pain is low back pain. About 85% of people who walk into this office have low back pain. So if they don't end up here, they're going to land at the medical doctor's office. And what their tool belt is: pain meds, shots, maybe some physical therapy. So they're actually going to treat the symptom, the pain, and potentially pain management.
People get into accidents, or people have conditions, and the first form of defense that a medical doctor have is a pill, potion, lotion, right? Because they're going to take the pill and it's going to take their symptom away. But where chiropractic is let's get to the cause of your pain and let's get it corrected naturally, without an opioid, without a pill, without something that's going to cause addiction in the body. Physiologically, we have pain centers in our brain, and when there's something gone wrong, the brain will turn on those pain fibers to let the person know, hey, there's a problem. But then those pain fibers get turned off, and then the person thinks, oh, I'm good to go. But meanwhile, the problem has still been brewing inside there. So then their pain comes back, and then they walk to the office. What chiropractic does from a physiological perspective is the adjustment takes pressure off of the nervous system. The nerves are the most sensitive tissue in the whole body. So if we create alignment and we take pressure off of those nerves, those pain centers will get turned off and we feel better rather than feeling better from that pill. Because I'm actually, in the state of Florida, chiropractors are considered primary healthcare physicians. It's just that the public is not educated on that. So most Americans are, as I call it, brought up in the medicine cabinet. What's wrong with you? Oh, I've got a little headache. Well, let me give you a little bit of Tylenol, honey, right? And that's how we're we grow up thinking, if there's something wrong with me, I have a symptom, I'm going to take something to dispel that symptom, to decrease it. Whereas what chiropractic will do is that we will remove that interference, the interference that's actually causing the pain, and we allow the body to function more naturally. I am very appreciative to be here because this is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm passionate about people taking control of their lives in a natural way, and I just, I'm trying to get out there myself to try to make connections with our local medical doctors, with our general practitioners, because they're the ones who are sending the patients to pain management, whereas I'd love to just continue to get out in the community and educate that we should be their first line of defense to handle patient problems.
Throughout all of this, there is still one perspective missing. I know this may seem unfair, but I wonder if the drugs could talk, if the pills could scream, if the corruption and collusion could have a say, what would they utter? I destroy homes, tear families apart, take your children, and that's just the start.
I'm more costly than diamonds, more costly than gold. The sorrow I bring is a sight to behold.
And if you need me, remember, I'm easily found. I live all around you, in schools and in towns. I live with the rich, I live with the poor, I live down the street, and maybe next door.
Just try me once, and I might let you go. But try me twice, and I'll own your soul.
When I possess you, you'll steal and you'll lie. You'll do what you have to, just to get high. The crimes you'll commit, for my narcotic charms, will be worth the pleasure you'll feel in your arms.
I'll take everything from you, your looks and your pride. I'll be with you always, right by your side. You'll give up everything, your family, your home, your friends, your money, then you'll be alone.
I'll take and I'll take, till you have nothing more to give. I'll ravish your body, I'll control your mind. I'll own you completely, your soul will be mine.
You'll regret that you tried me. They always do.
But you came to me, not I to you.
I'll even go with you. When you go to your grave, now that you have met me, what will you do?
Will you try me or not? It's all up to you.
I can bring you more misery than words can tell. Come, take my hand. Let me lead you to hell.
Signed, yours truly, Drugs.